Sean Connery. We lost a legend. What can I say? Sean Connery was and will always be the best James Bond. The first James Bond movie I ever saw was Goldfinger. That was my introduction to Sean Connery, an actor who brought James Bond to life, brought an essence of cool that all the other Bond actors have tried in a way to imitate. While at the same time they've made it their own, Sean Connery was the guy who started it all. And I understand, he was 90 years old, but it's still a shock. This is how life is. You're born, you live, and you die. And I wanted to talk briefly about a legend, Sean Connery. So many good movies. Goldfinger, classic 1964 James Bond movie. This is probably the quintessential James Bond. Every other Bond movie tries to be like Goldfinger. And Sean Connery is the essence of cool, the essence of what every man wants to be like. It's not just the James Bond movies, because I owned all of them. Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever, and of course, not many people consider this canon, but I do. I still consider this a James Bond movie, and that's never say never again. This was his last time playing the role. And there's other movies that he did that are amazing, like The Untouchables. If you haven't seen this movie, this is a great movie. Sean Connery, if I'm not mistaken, won an award for this movie. And his performance is great. This is probably one of his best performances, The Untouchables. Another favorite of mine is Entrapment. Great little movie here from the 90s. Hunt for Red October. Funny thing about Sean Connery was that whenever he played a character, like in this case he's playing a Russian, he still has that Scot accent. And there's very few actors where I dismiss that, I don't care. Like, he has that accent, that it is what it is. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't care if he's playing an American, if he has that accent, I buy it. With Sean Connery, the same thing. So, Hunt for Red October is another good movie if you have not seen it. The Rock, classic action movie, probably, I would say, Michael Bay's best movie. This one, and I also like Armageddon, but The Rock is a classic movie with Sean Connery. And the funny thing is that Sean Connery did not get along with Michael Bay. And there's even a line in this movie that makes a bit of a hint that he is 007. Another one is Outland. This is not that great. This one is a little cheesy, but I like it. It's a good, fun 80s movie. And one of the cheesiest ones, and I love it, and I think this movie would not work if it wasn't for Sean Connery, and that's Meteor. This is a disaster movie. This was released around the era of the disaster movie craze, like, Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno. This was another one of those movies. This one came out during the end of that craze. So those are some of the Sean Connery movies that I grew up watching, and I recommend if you haven't seen those. There'll be a link on the description down below where you can watch these movies if you don't, use physical media. There's a way you can watch these via streaming. I'll leave links below. But I also wanted to mention that with the passing of Sean Connery, I feel like, we're entering an era where we're losing a lot of great actors. We already lost Roger Moore. We've lost also composers like Ennio Morricone. It's just like these people who were so great, so amazing at their craft, and they leave behind an amazing body of work. I can't think, there's several Sean Connery movies that are not very good, like The Next Man, Zardos, even Meteor, which I just mentioned right now. But at the same time, even though they weren't that great, he made them fun. He made them enjoyable. If you look at the classic James Bond movies, which is something that the new ones are kind of missing, and don't get me wrong, I think Daniel Craig has done a great job with the role, Sean Connery made it fun. It was all about, James Bond is the guy everyone wants to be like. Every man wants to be like, and every woman wants to be with. It's a fantasy. It's not supposed to be taken very seriously. And I think that's what the problem I have with the Daniel Craig movies. They take themselves way too seriously. Even though I like them, I don't like them as much as the Sean Connery ones or the Roger Moore ones or even Pierce Brosnan, because they're about an adventure. And even with movies like Zardoz, Outland, The Next Man, several other movies that he's done that are not that great, his performance takes you into this world where you can accept it, you know? And that's something that's missing in a lot of modern movies. I'm not to say that all modern movies are terrible, they're not. There's a lot of great movies out there. And I've mentioned this before, I don't think movies are getting worse. They're just changing. That's, every audience is different. But with these classic actors passing away, we're not ever getting a chance to see anything from them again. And that's part of life. The last movie Sean Connery did was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in 2003, which he had such a bad time working with the director that he retired. And I like the movie. It's very fun. It's Sean Connery made that movie because he had, I believe, refused to do The Matrix and Lord of the Rings because he didn't understand those scripts. So he ended up doing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen instead. The movie is very silly, very dumb, but it's super entertaining. I laugh at that movie all the time. It's one of those guilty pleasure of mine. Same thing with The Avengers. There's another Sean Connery movie that I like that is so bad. Even Sean Connery himself said that the movie is terrible. But it's entertaining. It's super fun. Like, it's one of those movies that makes no sense. You can tell a lot of the plot was left in the cutting room floor. But again, whenever I want to watch something where I don't really care, I watch The Avengers. And he plays a really silly, bonkers villain who wants to control the weather. But again, like the other movies, his performance makes the movie work, surprisingly. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to remember Sean Connery for such a great actor, for being part of my childhood and being part of a lot of people's childhood. I know a lot of people who are around my age, probably grew up watching those movies, whether on VHS or on DVD, or on TV. I remember watching the James Bond movies back in the 90s on TV on TBS. There was something called 15 Days of 007, where they would play the James Bond movies, and they would play a lot of the Sean Connery ones. That's actually how I was introduced to Goldfinger. It was through watching it on TBS. So there's going to be another video that I'm going to be doing for the second channel, Dumbed Down. And there's also a brand new video there up if you haven't seen it where I'm talking about Bruce Willis. Check it out. It'll be on the description down below. But I'm going to be doing a video there that's going to be more in depth, talking about Sean Connery, remembering Sean Connery, more in depth, and I hope you'll enjoy that video. Also, stay tuned. There's going to be a video talking about my Laserdisc collection that's going to be coming up sometime next week, so stay tuned for that one. Anyway, guys, take care, and may Sean Connery rest in peace.